my interest in research is mainly in mechanisms that contribute to thrombotic diseases. And to that extent, I've been doing studies for the past 25 years approximately, starting in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, did a postdoc in Boston at the time, and since 12 years now I'm in Maastricht, University of Maastricht, at the hospital where I work for approximately 50% as a physician, and for 50% I'm in the Cardiovascular Research Institute in Maastricht. So that describes the work. Well, frankly, it was a paper that was not published yet because we had some difficulty getting it published in the 2 journals that we tried so far, and it was mainly because the outcomes were not spectacular in the sense that it was mostly negative, but we still felt it was very decent work. We described everything we did in a proper manner. We think the outcomes are not spectacular, but it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be published. In contrast, I think it should be published because it counterbalanced some of the other papers, similar papers, that had very positive outcomes of anticoagulants in the setting of ischemia reperfusion injury, and we just couldn't show any benefit, or hardly any benefit, of the compounds that we tested in this model of renal ischemia reperfusion injury. And then I thought it would be a good case to present as a first paper to ScienceOpen to get it out. We got 2 reviews basically, and one was pretty simple, and the other takes a bit more time to work on. But and both were very well-known experts in the field, so I was very pleased with their feedback. We know them, but they are fair and critical, which is good. And it's also good that this is published eventually, so that everybody can follow what we did, what the comments were, how we're going to revise it. I think, yeah, after the entire process open, there's not much left to complain about. Except that the outcome was, well, not spectacular, but yeah, that's what research is about, right? 90% is not surprising or negative, and it's only a small fraction that is quite spectacular. But that's how life is. Well, I think in general, open access is the way to go for publishers and for authors that want to report papers. It's very important, I think, that everybody in the world has access to our work. And one of the frustrations I find is not being able to access important publications in the common journals, and there are many of them. But it's increasingly difficult to get access to these journals because libraries become more and more limited in their resources for buying expensive subscriptions, etc. And yeah, at the same time, it's very important that all research that is important gets disseminated, and the only possible dissemination is to everybody, basically. And I think it's also absolutely important and fair to the world and the continents that do not have access to libraries and expensive subscriptions to Nature or other specialty journals, because many people can't afford it. In South America and Asia, there are large communities that do not have access to papers. They do have access to the internet most of the time, so if they can get access to publications, that would be a tremendous advantage. So I think I'm also myself, I'm editor-in-chief of an online open access journal, which is not that important, but it's called Thrombosis Journal, and it doesn't have an impact yet. But at the same time, you notice that many people appreciate the fact that they can just read these specialty publications that are not that high impact, but they do have access. And so I think, yeah, for those reasons, it's important that all journals would develop into that direction. And that I think is one of the reasons for joining ScienceOpen, also because I felt it's an important initiative, and it takes an extra step in the sense that you want to publish first and then collect reviews on the papers that you publish, which is important because the reviewing process itself is, of course, a major hurdle in the conventional journals. They all want to improve their impact factor, so the hurdles become higher and higher. Reviewers and editors are discouraged to accept papers, even though they can be qualitatively good, just for the lack of innovation or spectacular involved. And so I think that's another issue, and it's really good that ScienceOpen, and there are a few competitors, I think, that also take this step. Let's publish it first, get it out in the open, collect all the reviews, see if we can improve the paper. The reviews can be extremely critical, but nevertheless, at least it's in the air, it's out of the open. So I think that's another important issue, because we don't want any hidden science. We want to obtain transparency over the entire line, to get negative data published, equivocal data, doubtful data perhaps, but let's have it in the open. And so that's, well, two issues of importance, I think. Well, the main reason probably, and that's the paradox, that although we all would like to see open access stimulated, but junior authors are stimulated to go for the highest possible impact factor journals. That's important for their career. I guess people like me, who are somewhat senior in the field, do not care that much anymore. And of course, we had our share in excellent publications, hopefully. But for the younger people, it's really difficult. Yeah, so it's basically the impact factor system that's is a handicap nowadays for junior and also for other scientists to do their research with an open mind and without any strings attached. Because ultimately it's of course about publishing data, and to do this in a decent manner without the constant need for achieving the highest possible impact factor. Of course, the side effect is also that that it encourages indecent behavior, so to say, in manipulating data or selecting the best possible data, etc. And we know there are plenty of examples of that, which I think the chance will be much lower if there would not be that pressure of achieving, aiming for the highest impact factor journals, and just publish the data as they are, and write a nice paper about that, and have it open so that everybody can comment and discuss it. Yeah, it will require a change in the in the process, the way that research is carried out at the moment, I think. So it will involve universities to actively stimulate young scientists to go that way, and you would almost consider certain incentives. And I know there are possibly some universities that now reimburse publication fees for open access publications. That could be one step in the right way of also pursuing the supervisors of these young scientists who submit the papers to these journals. But that will really require that the universities as such take such a step, to give an example and to encourage people to do this. Because the costs are also a simple but important hurdle to take upon publishing your work. And open access journals, they all charge fees, but the regular journals, most of them also charge fees, and it doesn't make much of a difference, I guess. So it's usually $1,000 or something like that or more to get a paper published, which is not a trivial amount nowadays. In the good old days when we were rich, probably it wasn't that important, but nowadays every penny matters. And most researchers do not have a separate source for publication fees, and it's not included in grants. That would help, I think. So it really demands more than just for the individual researcher to take steps. It really will need at the level of governments or institutions, universities, to take, to stimulate this process.